She grabbed his boarding pass right out of his hand. Not by accident. Not with a stumble or an apology or a moment of confused embarrassment. She plucked it from his fingers with the practiced ease of someone who had never once been told no, who had never once been made to feel that anything in this world was beyond her reach. Then she sat down in seat 2A. His seat, settled her carry-on in the overhead bin, crossed her ankles, opened her magazine, and Marcus Webb just stood there in the aisle of Transcontinental Airlines Flight 1047, watching the woman who had just stolen his first-class seat flip to the fashion section like it was the most natural thing in the world. He had been awake for 31 hours. He had a board meeting in Chicago in 5 hours that would determine the futures of 11,000 employees. And in 11 years of flying more than 200 days per year, no one had ever done this to him before. But here's what the woman in seat 2A didn't know. What the 3 flight attendants hovering at the front galley didn't know. What the business class cabin full of curious eyes and carefully angled phones didn't know. Marcus Webb didn't just own a ticket to seat 2A on flight 1047. Marcus Webb owned the company that owned the plane. And in exactly 5 minutes, every single person on that aircraft was going to understand what it means to pick the wrong person to disrespect. Start from the beginning. Because this story doesn't start at Gate B7 in Atlanta's Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport. It starts 3 weeks earlier, in a boardroom 42 floors above the streets of downtown Chicago. Marcus Webb sits at the head of a table that cost more than most people's annual salaries. Around him, 12 executives from Apex Capital Ventures watch him with the particular brand of polite expectation that powerful people deploy when they want something but are too refined to ask for it directly. Webb Consolidated had been the subject of acquisition rumors for 2 years. 3 different private equity groups had circled the company, drawn by its balance sheet and its growth trajectory, and, though none of them would say it in polite company, by their quiet conviction that Marcus Webb, brilliant as he undeniably was, had simply gotten lucky, that a 38-year-old black man from Decatur, Georgia, with no inherited wealth and no legacy connections couldn't possibly have built a $4.2 billion logistics company through sheer strategic intelligence and 20-hour workdays. Marcus had heard the rumors. He had let them run, because Marcus Webb understood something that most people in that room didn't. The best negotiating position in the world is making someone believe they're negotiating with you when you're actually already 3 moves ahead. He left the boardroom that day without signing anything. His attorneys, his CFO, and his chief strategy officer followed him into the elevator. The moment the doors closed, he exhaled for the first time in 3 hours. "It's time," he told them. They knew what he meant. They had been preparing for it for 14 months. Transcontinental Airlines had been quietly hemorrhaging money for a decade. Good routes, loyal customers, a respected brand built over 50 years, and a management structure that was killing all of it slowly. 3 CEOs in 4 years. A union dispute that had dragged on so long no one remembered how it started. 2 hubs that needed infrastructure overhaul. A fleet that needed modernization. It was also, and this was the part that interested Marcus Webb specifically, the 3rd largest domestic carrier in the United States, operating in exactly the markets where Webb Consolidated's logistics network needed air freight capacity. He had started buying transcontinental stock 18 months ago, quietly. Through 3 different holding companies, each one layered behind another, structured with the kind of financial architecture that takes real patience to build. By the morning of Flight 1047, Marcus Webb owned 31% of Transcontinental Airlines. No one on that plane knew it. Yet, that announcement was scheduled for noon in Chicago, following a private breakfast with the Transcontinental Board and the subsequent regulatory filing with the Securities and Exchange Commission. He just had to get there first. Gate B7, 6:14 a.m. The Atlanta airport moves at its own velocity at the hour. The pre-dawn rush of business travelers, all of them worn down to a familiar smoothness by years of the same airports, the same TSA lines, the same overpriced coffee and the same terminal restaurants. Marcus stands in the priority boarding line in dark gray slacks, a white dress shirt open 1 button at the collar, a charcoal blazer that cost more than his first car. No tie, No watch that announces itself. The kind of clothes that say, money, to anyone who knows how to look, and say nothing to anyone who doesn't. He's on his phone. Has been on his phone since he left the hotel 40 minutes ago. His CFO is in his right ear running through pre-meeting numbers. His attorney is sending documents to his email as fast as they can be finalized. His chief of staff has been awake longer than he has, coordinating logistics for an announcement that will move markets. He barely registers the woman in line behind him. She's in her mid-50s, heavy pearl earrings, a cream blazer with a transcontinental, elite status pin on the lapel. She's the kind of woman who treats airports like her personal living room. The kind who speaks to gate agents with the particular clipped authority of someone who has never once been told the upgrade list is full. She's traveling with a friend, another woman around the same age, and the two of them are talking the way people talk when they assume the space around them belongs to them. First class always smells like someone else's perfume, the friend is. Saying, I told them I need 2A, the woman with the pearl earrings replies, not quietly. I always fly 2A. They gave it to someone else. Corporate error. I've already filed the complaint. Marcus doesn't hear this. He's listening to quarterly projections and thinking about what he's going to say in 3 hours to a room full of people whose professional lives are about to change. The gate agent scans his boarding pass. Welcome aboard, Mr. Webb. She smiles. The particular warmth of someone who has been specifically briefed on important passengers. He boards, moves through the bridge, steps into the aircraft and turns left, and stops. Because a woman in a cream blazer with pearl earrings is placing her carry-on in the overhead bin above seat 2A with the practiced efficiency of someone who has done this 1,000 times. Her friend is settling into 2B, and his seat, his assigned, confirmed elite status seat 2A, is being arranged around someone else's belongings. His boarding pass is still in his right hand. He looks down at it. 2A. Transcontinental Airlines. Flight 1047, Atlanta to Chicago. His name. His seat. Excuse me, he says. I believe you're in my seat. The woman looks up. Not startled, not apologetic. She looks at him the way someone looks at a minor inconvenience. Like an unexpected detour on a familiar road. I don't think so, she says pleasantly. I always fly 2A. That is a remarkable sentence. Said with complete confidence. As if frequency of preference creates legal precedent, as if wanting something badly enough makes it yours. He extends the boarding pass. She glances at it briefly, the way someone glances at something they've already decided is irrelevant. The airline must have made an error, she says. You should speak to the flight attendant. I'm sure they can sort you another seat. Somewhere in that sentence is the assumption so old and so automatic that she probably doesn't even know she's making it. The assumption that whatever he was holding in his hand, whatever documentation he could produce, whatever right he could claim, someone else's comfort mattered more. That the correct resolution involved him finding another seat so that she could keep the one she'd decided was hers. He looks at her for a moment, long enough that her friend shifts slightly in 2B. He nods. He turns, walks to the front galley, and asks to speak with the senior flight attendant. He does not raise his voice. He does not argue. He just reaches into the inside pocket of his blazer and removes a second card, not a boarding pass this time. Senior flight attendant Diane Petro has been with Transcontinental for 19 years. She has handled medical emergencies, diverted flights, managed terrified passengers through severe turbulence over the North Atlantic, and once talked a panicking first-time flyer through a panic attack for 40 straight minutes while managing a full cabin of 214 people. She has also handled seating disputes in first class more times than she can count. Rich people, business travelers with inflated self-images, couples who want to sit together in seats assigned to different passengers, people who simply decide with the blank confidence of the permanently entitled that the rules of the boarding pass don't apply to them. She knows how to smooth these situations. She knows how to smile and apologize and offer upgrade vouchers and make everyone feel they've won something. It is a particular and undervalued skill. When the tall black man in the expensive blazer approaches the galley and asks to speak with her, she reads the situation automatically. Seat dispute. First class. She knows who was in 2A before she even looks. She's already mentally preparing the speech. Then he shows her the card. It's not a business card exactly. It's a credential. One she recognizes because she was briefed on it 2 months ago during a senior staff meeting that she thought, at the time, was routine administrative housekeeping. One she was told to memorize and to take seriously if she ever saw it. She looks at the card. Looks at the man holding it. Looks at the card again. Then something changes in her face. Not alarm. Not embarrassment exactly. Something more like the sensation of realizing the floor you've been standing on is more solid than you thought and also somehow much higher up. "Mr. Webb," she says, and her voice has gone very still. "Yes," he replies. "Seat 2A is yours." She says it simply. She will take care of it immediately. She asks, quietly, what he would like her to do. He thinks about it for exactly 3 seconds. "Leave it," he says. "For now. He'd like a coffee. He has some calls to make. He'll sort it out himself when he's ready." Diane Petro brings him coffee in 1A, the seat directly across the aisle from the woman who has taken his. She does not explain. She does not make a scene. She brings the coffee with both hands and sets it with great care on the tray table. The woman in 2A watches this and decides, in the way people decide things when they're not paying close enough attention, that the situation has resolved itself in her favor. It has not. It has simply been paused. The door seals. The jetway retracts. The cabin crew performs their pre-departure safety demonstration with practiced grace. Marcus Webb takes exactly 3 sips of his coffee, makes one phone call that lasts 2 minutes and 40 seconds, types 4 sentences into his phone. Then, he sets the phone face down on the tray table and looks out the window at the pale gray Atlanta morning. He is thinking about a version of this moment that has happened to him before, in different airports, in different cities, in different rooms. He is thinking about the particular exhaustion of being the most qualified person in a space and still having to prove it. About the specific mathematics of being black in America, where sometimes the proof required is infinite and the patience required is a resource that depletes. He is also thinking about 11,000 employees, about a board meeting that starts in 4 hours, about a regulatory filing that will reshape 2 industries simultaneously, about 31% of an airline sitting in a portfolio that is about to become very, very public. And he is thinking about the fact that the woman in 2A has not looked at him since she settled into his seat, that she has ordered a mimosa, that she is back in her magazine. He lets 2 minutes pass. Then he unbuckles, stands, and walks the 3 feet across the aisle. The cabin is still boarding at the back. The engines haven't started. There's a particular quiet in first class at this stage of a flight, people settling into their purchased privacy, the careful distance that money buys. "Excuse me." The woman looks up. Her friend in 2B looks up too. Her friend looks more alert than she does. Something in the friend's expression says she's been slightly nervous about this situation since the gate. "I wanted to introduce myself properly," Marcus says. His voice is conversational, pleasant even. He extends his hand. "Marcus Webb." She shakes it automatically. "Sandra Calloway." She has a name now. "Sandra." "Sandra," he says. "I noticed there was some confusion about the seating. I have assigned seat 2A on this flight." He holds up the boarding pass, not urgently, just clearly, as a statement of fact. Sandra blinks. She processes this the way someone processes something that contradicts their entire working model of a situation, slowly, with some resistance. "Well, as I said, I always fly 2A. I have elite status with Transcontinental. I'm sure there was a system error." He nods. "I understand." He pauses. "May I ask, are you familiar with the name Marcus Webb?" She tilts her head. The name doesn't click. "Not yet." "I ask," he says, "because I'd like to give you a moment to look it up before I explain why that's relevant." Sandra stares at him. This is not how these conversations go. These conversations go: apologize, find another seat, voucher if necessary. They do not go. Look up my name. Her friend, whose name Marcus doesn't know yet, pulls out her phone. He watches her type. Watches. Her expression change. Sandra, the friend says. Her voice has gone quiet. Her name is Patricia, and she will later describe this moment as the most uncomfortable 7 seconds of her adult life. Sandra, look at this. Sandra takes the phone, looks at the screen. The Google result is immediate and clear. Marcus Webb, CEO and founder of Webb Consolidated. Forbes 400. Net worth, $4.2 billion. And there, third result down. A business news headline from 14 months ago. Webb Consolidated. Acquires minority stake in Transcontinental Airlines and surprise $680 million move. There's a photo. A professional headshot. The same face that is currently standing in the aisle 3 feet away from her, holding a boarding pass for seat 2A with the particular patience of a man who has made a deliberate calculation about how this moment should unfold. Sandra looks up from the phone, looks at Marcus, looks at the boarding pass, looks at the phone again. Something shifts. For the first time since she settled into seat 2A with her magazine and her mimosa, she looks uncertain. I had no idea, she starts. I understand that, Marcus says. He is not smiling, but he is not hostile either. He is simply clear, calm. The way people are calm when they know exactly what they're doing and exactly how it's going to end. Would you like to move to your assigned seat, or would you prefer I ask Diane to help sort things out? He says it without any particular emphasis on the name Diane. But the way Diane has been attending to him, the 2 hands on the coffee cup, the stillness, the particular quality of deference that can't be faked. It registers with Sandra Calloway for the first time that something here is significantly different from a routine seat dispute. She stands. She moves her carry-on. She takes her assigned seat with the careful dignity of a woman who knows she has made a significant error and is determined not to make it worse. He could sit down now. The seat is his. The situation is resolved, but Marcus Webb is not done. Because here's the thing about the woman in the first-class cabin who assumed a black man in an expensive suit couldn't possibly belong in seat 2A. Here's the thing about the 19 people who watched the interaction from the moment she took his boarding pass at the gate, including the 3 flight attendants who saw it happen and said nothing, and the gate agent who watched from 20 feet away and decided it wasn't her business, and the passengers who filmed it on their phones because it was interesting, and the passengers who looked away because it wasn't. The thing is, Sandra Calloway was just the most visible symptom of something systemic. Marcus Webb had not slept in 31 hours. He had a board meeting in 4 hours. He had a regulatory filing pending that would make him the controlling stakeholder of the airline on which he was currently sitting. And he had a decision to make. He could sit down. He could fly to Chicago. He could do the board meeting and sign the documents and let the news break at noon as planned and be done with it. He could let this be a story he told his attorneys over drinks someday. He could absorb it, the way he had absorbed 100 things like it over 38 years, or he could let it matter. He makes the call while still standing in the aisle. Not a dramatic call. 1 sentence, on a secure line, to his chief of staff. Push. The Chicago timeline 2 hours. I have something to handle here first. Then he sits in 2A, orders another coffee, opens his laptop, and begins drafting the letter. The engines are about to start. The door is sealed. The cabin crew has begun final pre-departure checks. Marcus closes the laptop, stands again, walks to the front of the aircraft and asks Diane Petrou for 5 minutes before pushback. She reads his expression, nods, picks up the phone to the captain. Captain Alan Rhodes has been flying for Transcontinental for 22 years. He flew military transport before that. He has never in his career stopped a pre-departure sequence for a passenger. He is about to. Diane relays the request. Captain Rhodes asks one question. Who is asking? Diane tells him. There is a pause. Captain Rhodes unbuckles. He walks out of the cockpit. He introduces himself to Marcus. Webb, with the specific professionalism of someone who has been told something in the last 45 seconds that has completely reorganized his understanding of the current situation. "What can I do for you, sir?" he says. Marcus explains what he would like. Quietly, calmly, completely. It takes approximately 4 minutes. Captain Rhodes listens to all of it. Then he picks up the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen," the intercom crackles. "This is Captain Rhodes. We're going to have a brief delay. Before pushback this morning, I apologize for the inconvenience. We expect to be underway shortly." The first-class cabin stirs with the particular agitation of important people who have places to be. Sandra Calloway frowns at her mimosa. Patricia looks out the window at the tarmac. At the back of the aircraft, 211 coach passengers absorb the delay with varying degrees of resignation. People recalculate connections. People check phones. People close their eyes and lean back. Nobody knows yet. 3 minutes pass. Then the forward cabin. Door opens. Not the jetway, the door itself. 4 people board. 2 of them in transcontinental corporate uniforms Marcus doesn't recognize, and 2 of them who are clearly attorneys because of the way they're carrying their briefcases and the way they're reading documents while walking, which is something only attorneys do. They proceed directly to Marcus. They do not speak to anyone else. Marcus exchanges a brief handshake with one of them, signs something, returns the document. One of the corporate uniformed individuals asks quietly if he's ready. He says he is. The woman picks up a satellite phone. She's the Transcontinental Director of Corporate Operations Atlanta Hub, and she has been on this aircraft since before it opened for boarding, sent here at 5:30 this morning by the Transcontinental Board of Directors based on a phone call they received the previous evening, a call that told them their largest non-institutional shareholder might have an interest in making a personal inspection of operations. She dials a number. Waits 2 seconds. The call connects to the Transcontinental Board's emergency line, and Marcus Webb begins to speak. He doesn't raise his voice. This is important to understand about Marcus Webb. In 20 years of building a company from a borrowed $40,000 and a storage unit in Decatur, Georgia, into a $4.2 billion enterprise, he has almost never raised his voice. Not in board meetings, not in negotiations, not when private equity firms sent their best people to explain to him why he should consider cashing out before the market turned. Not when the business press spent a year writing think pieces with headlines like, "How long can the magic last?" Because apparently building a successful company while black made it magic rather than strategy. He speaks clearly into the phone. He explains what occurred at Gate B7 this morning. He explains what occurred in the cabin. He notes the flight attendant who watched the seat theft happen and chose not to intervene. He notes the gate agent. He notes the 3 minutes that elapsed between the moment he showed his boarding pass to the woman in 2A and the moment she moved. He notes, specifically and with precision, that he has 31% of this company sitting in a portfolio that the market does not yet know about, and that his first direct experience of Transcontinental's customer service was watching a white woman take his assigned seat while airline employees observed and did nothing. He is not dramatic about it. He doesn't have to be. The facts are dramatic enough on their own. There is a silence on the board's emergency line that lasts about 4 seconds. Then a voice that belongs to Transcontinental's chairwoman, Dr. Evelyn Park, says, "Mr. Webb, we're prepared to proceed with whatever you feel is appropriate." He thanks her, ends the call, turns to the Director of Corporate Operations. He would like the incident documented, formally, with timestamps from the gate camera footage. He would like the airline's seating dispute protocol reviewed, and he would like to know how the senior flight attendant's non-intervention squares with the company's stated service standards. He would like all of this before he walks into the Chicago boardroom today, because when you acquire 31% of a company's equity, you inherit its culture, and he would like to understand the culture he is inheriting. The Director of Corporate Operations is writing very quickly. He would also like, he adds, a written commitment from Transcontinental's leadership that the review findings will be made available to him and to the full board before the next quarterly meeting. She, odds, still writing. One more thing, he says. Get Sandra Calloway's account on file. Whatever status she carries, whatever loyalty miles, whatever elite tier, he wants her to receive a formal written notice that her conduct at Gate B7 this morning constituted a violation of the airline's passenger code of conduct, specifically, the sections governing interference with assigned seating and the misappropriation of another passenger's boarding documentation. Not a ban. Not a cancellation of her account. A notice. On record. Official, because Marcus Webb is not interested in revenge. He is interested in accountability. There is a difference, and he has spent 38 years learning to understand exactly where that line runs. The director of corporate operations steps off the aircraft. The attorneys follow. The door seals again. Captain Rhodes returns to the cockpit. The engines start. The delay was 11 minutes total. Not 5, as the title of this story suggests, because 11 minutes doesn't have the same ring, but also because the actual grounding, the real one, happens in a different way than anyone on this aircraft is expecting, and it takes a few minutes longer to become visible. The aircraft taxis to the runway. First class sits in the particular quiet of people who have witnessed something and are deciding what to do with it. Sandra Calloway has not spoken since she gave up seat 2A. Patricia is looking at her phone. The mimosa sits untouched. Several. Roseback, a young man named Devin, who is traveling to Chicago for his first job interview at a consulting firm, has been filming on his phone since the moment the corporate officials boarded. He has 17 seconds of footage that he isn't sure about. He can't quite hear what was said. The footage shows 4 officials boarding an aircraft, proceeding directly to a passenger, and the passenger signing a document. It shows the passenger's face. It shows his calm. Devin doesn't know who Marcus Webb is yet. He will by the time the plane lands. Diane Petrou carries out her cabin duties with the focused professionalism of someone processing something significant. She checks on the passengers in first class. She offers refills. She does her job. She will spend the flight thinking about the moment the woman took the boarding pass from the man's hand at the gate, and the decision she made, or failed to make, in that moment. She is not a bad person. She is a person who made a calculation that turned out to be wrong. That is a different problem, and it is a problem with a different solution. The plane touches down in Chicago at 9:41 a.m. The connection was 12 minutes late, which means it was on time, which is how airline time works. Marcus Webb's phone begins to receive messages the moment it reconnects to cellular. 41 messages, 6 missed calls, news alerts from 3 different financial publications. The filing has gone through. The press release has dropped. The announcement he was traveling to Chicago to make has been made, slightly ahead of schedule, because when you delay a meeting 2 hours, your attorneys sometimes make judgment calls about timing that seem right in the moment. Transcontinental Airlines announces strategic acquisition by Webb Consolidated. Marcus Webb to assume role as executive chairman, reads the headline in the Wall Street Journal. Marcus sets his phone down on the tray table as the plane taxis to the gate. He looks out the window at the gray Chicago morning. He is thinking about the board meeting ahead, about what he's going to say to 11,000 airline employees who are now, in a meaningful sense, his employees, about the restructuring plans and the union conversations and the infrastructure investment and all the unglamorous, important work that comes after the announcement. He is also thinking about something his grandmother told him when he was 9 years old, sitting on the porch of her house in Decatur. She was talking about a different situation, a school situation, a teacher who had seated him in the back of the classroom despite his grades, but the principal held. "You don't have to announce yourself," she told him. "Just make sure the room knows you were there." He picks up his bag, walks off the plane. The story does not end at the gate. Stories like this never end at the gate. The 17 seconds of footage Devin captured doesn't go anywhere for 2 days. He posts it without much context. 4 officials boarding a plane, and it sits in his feed with 43 views for 47 hours. Then someone who follows financial news recognizes the face of the passenger who signs the document, does the math, looks up the filing announcement, makes the connection. That's Marcus Webb, the caption reads, CEO of Webb Consolidated. He just became the biggest shareholder in transcontinental airlines, and apparently his first flight as de facto owner included a white woman stealing his seat and the flight crew watching it happen. 47 views becomes 47,000 in 4 hours. It becomes 4 million in 24 hours. Sandra. Calloway's name surfaces in comments. Devon hadn't named her, but someone in first class did, and someone else confirmed it, and the internet being what it is. The story assembles itself with the particular efficiency of 1 million people simultaneously curious about the same thing. Sandra Calloway has, until this week, been the vice president of regional development at a commercial real estate firm in Atlanta. She has a LinkedIn profile with 411 connections. She has a public Facebook account. She is findable, and she is found. The messages begin. She does not respond to them publicly. Her employer does. A brief statement. They are aware of the incident. They are taking it seriously. They do not condone discrimination of any kind. They are grateful for the public's attention to matters of equity and inclusion. They have values that they uphold in all circumstances. The statement lands with about as much grace as these statements usually do. Sandra Calloway takes a leave of absence, which her employer confirms in a follow-up statement. Whether it is a leave of absence or something more permanent remains, at the time of writing, unclear. Patricia, her friend, issues a personal statement through her daughter's Instagram account, which is awkward for the daughter. Patricia says, "She is not racist. She is horrified by her friend's behavior. She should have intervened. She is working on herself." It is a more human statement than Sandra's employer's. Whether it is more effective is another question. Diane Petrau contacts the director of corporate operations before the flight even lands in Chicago. She does it of her own accord. She requests a meeting.
She says, quietly and without drama, that she knows she made a mistake when the seat dispute began and that she would like to be part of whatever review process the company conducts. Not to protect herself, to help. That is the kind of thing Marcus Webb said to look for. People who volunteer the truth before the truth is extracted from them. The Chicago board meeting runs 4 hours. Marcus Webb walks into a room of 14 people who knew about him as a name on a shareholder role for 18 months and are only now meeting him as a person. He is wearing the same gray slacks and charcoal blazer he boarded in Atlanta wearing. He has had 1 additional coffee, no food, and 31 hours of wakefulness behind his eyes. He is, by every account of everyone in that room, the most composed person there. He begins with a statement that none of the board members expected. Before we talk about any of the strategic items on today's agenda, he says, "I want to talk about what happened to me this morning on a transcontinental flight." He tells the story without embellishment. He describes the seat. He describes the woman who took it. He describes the flight attendants who watched. He describes the calculation he made and the call to the corporate operations director and the 11-minute delay. He doesn't tell it as a grievance. He tells it as a diagnostic tool. "This is what your airline looks like from the inside," he says. "This is one data point, but data points cluster." The formal complaint review my office requested this morning found 47 similar seating-related incidents in the past 18 months in which passengers of color reported inappropriate responses from cabin crew. 47. Not all of them were seat disputes. Some are beverage service inconsistencies. Some are boarding priority violations. Some were subtler than that. But the pattern is there, and patterns are information. The room is very quiet. "I am not here to punish this airline," he continues. "I am here to fix it. But you cannot fix what you refuse to see, and the first thing I am asking this board to commit to is a culture of seeing." He places a folder on the table. Inside are the first 3 pages of a 140-page operational reform proposal that his team has been preparing for 14 months. The proposal covers fleet modernization, labor relations, hub infrastructure, and a customer service standard that he calls the non-negotiable baseline, which is essentially the belief that every passenger on every transcontinental flight should receive exactly the level of service their ticket entitles them to, regardless of what they look like or where they're from or what the flight attendant's automatic assumptions tell them about who belongs where. It is, in its way, a remarkably simple idea. It is also, in practice, one of the most difficult things in the world to execute. He's not naive about that. He says as much. This doesn't happen through a memo, he tells the board. It doesn't happen through mandatory training seminars or diversity pledges or press releases. It happens when the people doing this work understand, at a granular level, what consistent service actually looks like and feel both empowered and accountable to deliver it. That's a management problem, which means it's a leadership problem, which means it starts here in this room today. He pauses. I experienced something on one of your planes this morning that I should not have experienced. Not because of who I am specifically, because of who I am generally. A human being with a confirmed ticket to an assigned seat. The fact that it required my particular identity to generate a response tells you something about the size of the gap between your stated values and your operating reality. The chairwoman, Dr. Evelyn Park, is the first board member to speak. What do you need from us? She asks. He tells her. 3 months later, Transcontinental Airlines announces the implementation of the Web Service Accountability Initiative. It is not named after Marcus Webb by his request. It is named after the concept of service accountability, which is, he has argued, what airlines actually promise passengers when they take their money. The initiative includes independent third-party auditing of cabin service across all routes, with specific attention to seating dispute protocols. It includes revised training for all customer-facing personnel. It includes a passenger advocate office, staffed by a team that reports directly to the board and specifically handles complaints that allege discriminatory treatment. It includes a public-facing dashboard that shows complaint resolution timelines, because transparency, as Marcus told the board, is not a risk. It's a standard. Diane Petro, after her voluntary participation in the incident review, is asked to be part of the cabin crew advisory team helping design the new training curriculum. She accepts. She is not naive about what her hesitation that morning cost. But she understands, as she tells the first session of the advisory team, that the best way to make up for a moment of moral failure is to make sure you never repeat it. Devin, the young man with the 17-second video, gets his consulting job. He does not speak much about the video in the interview, but it comes up anyway. One of the partners mentions it. He's heard of it, of course, and asks Devin what he made of the moment. Devin thinks about it for a few seconds. I think the remarkable thing wasn't that the guy owned the airline, he says. The remarkable thing was that he was calm. Like he'd thought through exactly how this should go, and he just let it happen the way he'd planned it. Most people would have been furious. He wasn't furious. He was methodical. The partner nods. What does that tell you? Devin thinks again. That the most powerful response to injustice isn't anger, he says. It's strategy and patience and knowing exactly who you are when other people are trying to tell you that you're not. Marcus Webb does not talk about the flight much. He is busy. 11,000 employees are busy. The restructuring plan is underway, and restructuring plans are never as clean in practice as they are in a 140-page proposal. He does, once, mention it in a commencement address at Morehouse College. He doesn't dramatize it. He doesn't use names. He describes it in about 4 sentences as an example of what he calls the mathematics of assumptions. The way assumptions made quickly, automatically, without examination, compound into systems that harm people at scale. He tells the graduates what he told the Transcontinental Board. You cannot fix what you refuse to see. And then, because it is a commencement, and because he was 19 once and sitting in a seat that someone had decided didn't belong to him, he tells them something else. There will be rooms, he says, where someone will look at you and calculate, instantly, automatically, without malice or awareness, that you don't belong there. That the seat has someone else's name on it. That the table was set for someone else. That the door swings open for a different kind of person. He pauses. Keep your boarding pass, he says. Know your seat. And understand, fundamentally and at the bone, that documentation is not proof of belonging. You already belong. The documentation is for everyone else. He gets a standing ovation. He is not sure it's for the speech. He thinks it might be for something more specific and more earned than a speech. Sandra Calloway does not return to her position at the commercial real estate firm. She takes a different job, at a smaller company in a different city. She does not comment publicly on the incident. Her LinkedIn profile is updated 4 months later with a new role. Whether she thinks about the moment she took the boarding pass from a man's hands and told him to find another seat, and what she makes of it now, is not known. What is known is that she has an official notice in her transcontinental passenger file about conduct violations, and that file is accurate. Records matter. Documentation matters. The paper trail of what actually happened, preserved correctly, is one of the most powerful tools available to anyone who has been told, through word or action or assumption, that their assigned seat belongs to someone else. Marcus Webb is executive chairman of Transcontinental Airlines. He still travels. He still flies coach sometimes because he says you can't understand what you're building if you only experience it from one end. Nobody has taken his seat again. Did that story grab your attention? Hit that like button to support more powerful justice stories like this one. Subscribe for weekly stories of real accountability, quiet strength, and the people who understand that the most effective response to injustice isn't anger, it's strategy. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. And turn on notifications, because the next story drops in 7 days and you won't want to miss it.